Hello, everyone. My name is Alexandria Severa. I'm the administrative assistant here for the Humanities Department at UNCA Asheville. And today I'm interviewing Nicco Avallone, an upcoming graduate and philosophy major here in our philosophy department. I'm very excited to speak to him, and hopefully we'll get into some metaphysics. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
This is quite a pleasure.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you. I will be honest, this is one of my highlights of my year, is getting to interview and highlight upcoming graduates, which you are.
Indeed.
So, just to go off the bat, how do you feel about graduating in several weeks from now?
Well, honestly, it's a little scary. I mean, it's a new chapter of life, new expectations, new things, everything's different, new routine, right? Mm-hmm. You have to get used to that, but I'm looking forward to it. I have some prospects of what I can do, and even if none of those work out, I know that all will be fine. I mean, the only thing the universe can do is work itself out, right? So why worry too much about it? Not to say I don't have a plan, but I'm feeling it's a mix. It's a mix. I'm excited, but I'm nervous,
What's that quote by General MacArthur where it's like, no plan survives first contact with the enemy, but planning is indispensable?
I like that quote. I haven't heard it, but it's good.
It's a good way to, I think, look at the process. 4 years.
3.
You've gone to 3.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm graduating a year early.
That is impressive.
Thank you.
How did you manage that, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, that is very much intertwined with the axing of the philosophy department, because they could only offer so many classes after the erasure of the department. I was kind of funneled through. I wasn't allowed to pick my classes if I wanted to maintain the philosophy degree, which I did. So they put me through a teach-out plan, which was rigorously invested by all of my professors, which I'm very appreciative of, because they could only had so much resources to work with before they weren't allowed to continue. So that is why. I also came in with a few credits, not too many though. I know some people come in with like 2 years worth. Not me. I took a few APs, but enough to not do math, which I'm appreciative of. But
which is interesting because I always feel like math is quite cohabitational with like logic and philosophy in a lot of ways.
Yeah, for sure.
These are my viewing of things.
Well, it's funny because the worst academic performance I've ever put out in my life was logic.
Interesting.
So there might be some correlation there. That's why I do philosophy.
I actually did quite well with logic, which is interesting.
Yeah.
But I think that it has to do with a background in computers.
Did you enjoy it?
I did. I actually quite enjoyed it. I quite enjoyed the kind of how to structure your speech, how to structure an argument, and then how things flow from one to the other in a kind of logical way. I thought was really it was enjoyable. It was a fun class.
Yeah, right on. I'm glad you had that experience.
So you are a philosophy major. I was kind of curious, what drew you to the philosophy program at UNCA, and what brought you down that path of becoming a philosophy major?
Well, it's kind of a funny story. So originally I was going to go into university and do business. I was going to do like business marketing and whatnot. And I remember the summer before I came here, I remember waking up and I sat at my bed and I said, I hate business. Like, I'm just not going to do this. And so literally while I was still laying in my bed, I grabbed my computer from beside me and I just took a bunch of online quizzes like, what's your major? And they all came back as like philosophy or history. I was like, you know what, let's just do it. So I took a philosophy course my first semester here, Intro to Philosophy with Dr. Dwayne Davis, incredible professor. And I was just hooked. A lot of my friends and I like to call it that class, specifically the gateway class, because that's what got us like hooked, It
sunk its teeth in.
Oh, it definitely did. Definitely thanks to Professor and a lot of the other great ones here.
But we're, I know the philosophy, as you've discussed, the philosophy program, it's a very tight-knit community. Is there any experiences with both that class and with the kind of discussions? Because as we've talked about in other conversations, it's very discussion and debate-focused a lot of the time. Anything from that initial class that has stuck with you through your collegiate career?
Dr. Davis, honestly, he's definitely stuck out with me for that class. I took him for several other classes before he left, but he was just such an incredible professor with such a passion for teaching and wanted us to really, I mean, of course, professors should want you to learn and grow and move forward, but I really felt that with him. Always made himself incredibly available whenever we had questions or needed help, inside and outside of class. Just kind and engaging. And I feel like that experience, along with some of my other friends in that class, who I'm still with today, are reasons why we really got into it. And I definitely hold the lessons that I've taken away from Dr. Davis today. Like, he has done a lot for me.
Have you found that since that philosophy, intro to philosophy class, that your opinions have changed or morphed, or your beliefs or how you interact with philosophy has changed much at all?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't want to say they've changed significantly, and because I feel like when I went into it, I just didn't have them. You know, I just didn't have like the arsenal to even be prepared to talk about a lot of the topics that I can now. So they didn't change. They grew into what they were, which I think is a good thing. And not to say that they can't change. And I mean, I've definitely had opinions that have changed throughout my time here, my time at UNCA in general. But it's definitely more of a becoming rather than a change, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. A process of becoming, of refining.
Yeah, that's something that I'll probably talk a bit more about, which also Dr. Davis left me with, is existentialism, which is all about becoming. And that is what I try to live. Well, I mean, of course I live my life by that, who doesn't? But the power of becoming, or the want to become, is something that I try to live my life every day by. I don't know. It's just very powerful to me.
And by existentialism, you mean if you had to define existentialism, or at least a specific branch from a thinker that you find quite important, how would you define it for our audience?
Well, my favorite book of all time is called Near to the Wild Heart by Clarice Lispector. And that is all about this girl becoming herself and becoming into her womanness, which is a really powerful story. Absolutely highly recommend reading it. What definitions would I bring? I don't want to bring a set definition because I'm very against universals. But I'll bring what I take away from it. And that is authenticity is, I mean, of course, that is one of the cruxes of existentialism, but authenticity to me is so vitally important that I think if you don't, at least for me, if I realize I'm not being authentic, it causes so much cognitive dissonance in my mind that I have to switch. I have to stop whatever that thing is that I'm doing and make the right decision for me, even if that might be super difficult in the time. I understand that might become or even if it is difficult, that the difficultness is the path of least resistance in that moment, as the consequences might have been greater later down the line.
It's better to paraphrase, better to have that authentic action, even if there's consequences, or not consequences, even if it's difficult, rather than something that you are not.
Right.
I kind of think of the quote by Kant, where it's like, if the truth will kill him, let him die.
Yeah.
I use that one quite often in my life whenever I'm having a conversation with someone. It's like, well, I want to tell you this, but I don't know. And I'm like, well, just tell me the truth.
Yeah. That's what's crazy about Kant. Someone knocks on the door asking, where's this guy? They just ran out the back door. You got to tell them. You got to tell them they ran out the back door, because it's categorical imperative.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get off on that.
Categorical imperative of honesty, which I think is interesting, because in my day-to-day life, I want everyone to be honest with me, I feel. But it's then, or I think most people want other people to be honest with them, but they are not always themselves honest.
Very much.
And so you either have to be comfortable with the prospect that other people are lying to you quite often, or you have to become honest yourself, I think.
Wow, that's a hefty thing to realize. Yeah. Have you become comfortable with people lying to you?
That's an interesting question. I think using the term lying implies a sense of morality, or sense of guilt, or a sense of consciousness. I think a lot of people in my life that are close to me, they don't so much lie. People don't so much lie, I think, sometimes, as they don't know fully themselves, or they don't know fully how to articulate it. I think because I think language is often an improper tool. It's a tool, and it's the only tool we have. Because I feel like if we were directly talking to each other using like brain-to-brain communication or something, that would be quite boring.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think oftentimes, I think see, I'm being very post-structural, postmodern with it. I'm critiquing the question and not asking it.
Good job.
But so you are the president of the philosophy club. One of the presidents of the philosophy club.
We have a very, what's the word? Collaborative system.
Collaborative system.
Yeah.
What is that like? What is that
it's incredible. With my two other cohort, Hannah McCowan and Nia Vines, out there running philosophy club, out there making it happen. It's great, and it's really awesome because we all kind of have our little roles that we fill without even like realizing it. Like it's just kind of how it developed and what happened. Because I mean, this club was just kind of like handed to us by our predecessors, and it wasn't a lot of time to like talk with other people and figure out, okay, how can we like go about making this club what it should be, because we didn't even know what it was supposed to be. But then as we just did it more, got more comfortable with each other, we've created quite a team, I'd say, of go-getters and do-doers, you know? Like that was, working with them has been incredible and has been awesome because they're both incredible people, and I really, really appreciate my time with them. Because I mean, they're both incredibly smart and prepared and ready for whatever is thrown at them, and being able to work. I mean, we would never have been in like the same situations because we're all in different areas of the school. So being able to get together on this it's been such a pleasure. It has been such a pleasure.
And now you become the predecessor that hands it off to someone else. Is that the case?
Well, Hannah and Nia are staying. They're staying one more year. I'm not entirely sure who's going to replace me yet, if any. I'm sure there will be, but we'll be on the lookout. You know, we've been looking.
Fantastic. You were telling me about that in our previous conversations. And how long have you been president, by the way?
So this got handed to us after my first year. So we started beginning of sophomore year. So it's been 2 years for me.
And you said it was kind of passed down from predecessors. As you graduate, do you feel a sense of legacy? Because I was the president of a club on campus for a bit. And do you ever feel a sense of, in my senior year, do you ever feel a sense of like legacy or your mark you've made on the club or anything like that?
I mean, I'm very happy to have been a part of it, incredibly so, because I feel I've helped it grow into what it is. I don't feel terribly concerned about a legacy, if I'm being completely honest. I did what I had to do, and I feel like I've done my time. Not to say I wouldn't continue it if I were to stay. And I'm very much an advocate of just letting the universe work out what it needs to work out. And if I'm a part of that, I'm a part of that. If I'm not, I'm not. And I feel like the club will become what it needs to be, and it is very much in capable hands with my two other peers.
If you would be as so kind for our viewers at home, would you be able to describe what the average philosophy club meeting might look like?
For sure. So typically we have, well, it depends on when exactly. Towards the beginning of the year, we normally have a lot more people show up, but we normally get around like 10, 20 people come and just sit down and talk. Like it's very much like this, except just in a bigger scale. We come in with a topic, a very loose topic, a few guiding questions. Like for example, we did Afrofuturism yesterday, led by Nia, which was great great meeting. But yeah, we just get down around this table and just have a little conversation and see what people think about it, ask questions about people who might know more about it. It's really just a discussion amongst a lot of really smart people, like far smarter than myself, that I really appreciate being around because I feel like I learn something every time.
Interesting. Now I'm kind of curious, was there anything that stuck out from that discussion? Because I'm also quite uninitiated or not particularly knowledgeable on Afrofuturism.
Well, I would preface my answer with I'm not either. But we got into a discussion about identity with it yesterday. Every time this club always kind of, or every meeting, it always kind of takes a turn into something else, but that's
Yeah.
part of the beauty of the conversation, right? I mean, it'll just evolve naturally as it needs to be. But we started talking about identity a lot, and I was wondering how Afrofuturism is involved with identity, because it seems to be very much so, especially considering the aesthetic value that, or the aesthetics that it values. I mean, like specifically clothing, because that's how I first found out about Afrofuturism whatsoever, was watching the Dakar Fashion Week in Senegal. I remember it was just like on the TV somewhere, and I was like, that's really cool stuff. And it came out, it was like Afrofuturism, and they were all walking out in these like visors and looked like something from Cyberpunk, but I thought it was really cool. So I don't know too much about it, but the identity talk really got me thinking, because we started talking about like, the fashion involved in it, and I am a pretty big advocate for like just a lack of identity. I don't think, in like that Buddhist sense, like that there isn't really like one. I mean, we very much have like external ones that people interpret and that we express, but I feel like at the core, it's either all the same in all of us or there's nothing. So that conversation's got me thinking a lot about like how clothes represent identity and what you can tell or not tell about people. You don't want to make assumptions, of course, but just what you, I don't know how to make that sound not judgmental, but just appreciating clothing in tandem with identity and what that might say about that person.
Clothing is a personal and cultured subject to which we can understand another person.
For sure. Yeah. Because that is a huge aspect of it.
I think there's an interesting part of that where maybe in previous epochs of human development, clothes were kind of made quite locally and kind of reflected that. But now we kind of live in a culture of, the globalized culture of all parts of your shirt and all part of my clothes go through maybe 5 or 6 different countries. And it's kind of more of a metacultural subject.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I've not really thought about it like that. Yeah, it's definitely like intercultural now.
Like my outfit today, I would say, is quite reminiscent of like the beatnik subculture.
I'm not familiar with that.
Beatniks, they kind of emerge out of they're kind of proto-hippies, is what I would say. They kind of emerge out of the 1930s and 40s civil rights movement. They emerge out of the blues culture. They emerge out of the communist movement of the 30s and 40s. Mainly basically they're the kids of the Depression, but not the ones that went to war. Is how I would define it. Lots of blacks and kind of French. French is the common word. If you've ever watched The Simpsons, Flanders' parents are
I have watched The Simpsons. I cannot recall Flanders' parents right now.
There you go. But yeah, that's interesting. My first experience with Afrofuturism was it was talked about a lot in relation to the Black Panther movie, the first one. Apparently that one used a lot of aesthetic and thematic influences from Afrofuturism. I was kind of curious then, as we continue talking about philosophy, and you talked about identity and clothing, I was quite curious, if you don't mind me asking, how humanities. You were at school here when we still had the core, and everyone had to go through their humanities program, or had to go through the humanities program. I was kind of curious then, what was your relation to the humanities program over your 3 years here?
So I have one more humanities, and that I will take after I walk the stage. So I took my first year, I took Humanities 124. I took the honors section of that with Dr. Hardy. That was a great class. It was a really great class. And then after that, I took my other 2 online over the summers. So my relation to it, I will be honest, has probably been a bit distant compared to other people who have taken it actually in person and like gone through the ringer, if you will, of the actual humanities program. Not to say I haven't. I just feel you definitely get a lot more being in person. That's something that we can't really ignore. But my relation to it has also been very positive. I mean, I love the humanities program. Are you kidding me? It's great. Sometimes, you're sitting there questioning why you're reading some like 3,000-year-old thing that might not really apply to you. However, I feel like all of the knowledge that you get and the different perspectives that you may not get elsewhere. I mean, that's something that was written 3,000 years ago.
Yeah.
Like when else are you gonna read that? So I loved it. I loved it. Especially my first semester here taking it. Like that was just so much fun. Because I mean, I'm kind of biased in liking philosophy. That's a big topic.
You were talking about like finding things in stuff written thousands of years ago. Reminds me to a previous comment you made just several minutes ago, where you have the kind of very Buddhist concept of there is no internal identity, where you're all the same on the inside, or there's nothing. And I thought that's kind of interesting, because I feel like I've heard from a lot of other students their experience with a lot of those texts is like cutting through and finding those nuggets of commonality, or finding those where their fingers touch with the past. Was there any text that you felt really kind of that you touched fingers with the person writing it, or to use a kind of maybe I'm calling allusion to the Sistine Chapel ceiling with God touching, yeah. But is there any text that you felt really kind of stuck with you from your time then? Yes,
absolutely.
I'm
and
excited
that would
for
be
this.
the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu. The Tao Te Ching, I'll be honest, I read it the hour before we were talking about it in class. I read the whole thing, sitting on the quad, and it was so incredible. Like, and then talking about it, that like, before I came to university, I knowing that I was going to go into philosophy a bit before, I kind of did a little research, wanting to prepare myself to know what's coming, and through that I found Taoism, that being like one of the intro philosophy topics, but. That is by no means to negate its value and importance and pressure, for lack of a better word. Like Taoism to me is so applicable. Specifically, like I really love this analogy because it makes no sense, but it's awesome. And that is, if there's a rock in your path, become water and seep under it. And it's like, what does that even mean? But I love that because, I mean, again, I'm another very big advocate of letting the universe work itself out because it can do nothing but.
Yeah.
And, at least in my opinion. And Taoism felt like an overlap to that. It felt like it supported that. And I don't know if I was aware of my opinions on that before I saw on Taoism, but Taoism has definitely helped me solidify that and give me a peace of mind about the universe. Like Taoism and Buddhism in this sense of like, just, you don't really need to worry too much about things because like eventually it'll happen in whatever way it happens. And that has alleviated so much of my anguish and stress throughout my life, or at least since I found it.
I've gotten something very similar from a lot of Buddhist texts that I've encountered in my time here. The idea of desire is suffering is quite sometimes, I think, really misunderstood, because I don't think it's a phrase that's necessarily talking down on the object of desire or feeling so much that you shouldn't. It's more so that the thing you desire will be destroyed by your desire for it, rather than you experiencing the thing. So it's kind of that wanting to control that, or wanting to anticipate desire or demand it, or anticipate the thing of your object of your desire destroys it.
Do you have a text that really stuck out with you?
For my time in the humanities, I said this, I was asked the same question last year, and I have to think of it that's changed, because I notice that sometimes it changes.
Yeah.
Because as you've been talking about the universe working itself out, and I think the hermetic quote of "as above, so below," the universe is working itself out, and so am I. And so I feel like my answer to this should change. But I would say Al-Ghazali's Deliverance from Error is one that has stuck with me. Kind of this, especially as an anthropologist, and stuck with me at the time because of its relation to anthropology. As anthropology is kind of this, it's a science, we bill ourselves as a science, but it doesn't have a lot of the trappings of science as we kind of the positivist. Even though it is a positive discipline, it doesn't have a lot of the same trappings. It's almost as if you yourself are the instrument of experimentation, your emotions and your heightened above emotions, kind of the Sufi concept of touching God through experience. In the same sense, in anthropology, you are the antenna. And so that married itself quite nicely then to Al-Ghazali's deliverance from error and his understanding of Sufism.
Well, you thought about that. That's awesome.
Yeah. But you were talking a lot about kind of the humanities being put through the ringer in it, and having that kind of experience with text that you wouldn't otherwise have experienced. And I think that's something that's quite beautiful about both philosophy and humanities, is that interdisciplinary nature. A lot of people from a lot of backgrounds discussing the same object. Thinking about the parable about the blind men and the elephant. Going back to the philosophy club, you've talked about how it's not exclusive to just philosophy majors.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
In fact, I think I'm the only major that shows up. Nia has a minor. I'm trying to think. I know there are some people that come to the club, and they would tell us, like, we're going to this club because we wanted to take philosophy at the school, but they weren't allowed because they came too late. Yeah. And that is a real shame. But I'm very happy that we can at least provide some sort of outlet for that desire to engage with philosophy that very much exists despite what they might tell us. Because there's been at least 5-6 people that have said that they would have studied philosophy here had they not removed it. And I'm sure the numbers are way beyond just that, considering that's what we know, which is a shame, which is really a shame. But again, I'm glad that there is at least, that was really interesting because it wasn't until after all of the department got cut that our numbers really started going up. It's just really, really, that's intriguing, right? Like, what does that say? Again, that's also when we took over too. It all kind of happened at a similar time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, wow, people want it. People want philosophy, People want to talk and deeply engage with things that they may not have the opportunity to do so outside of these spaces. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think it's with that interdisciplinary, I guess, people not in the philosophy department coming to these discussions, do you often see people, what are some interesting ways you've seen maybe that people bring their experience from other disciplines and other schools of thought and of knowledge of departments? They've brought interesting perspectives to questions posed by philosophy.
For sure. Well, Hannah McGowan, one of the other leaders, she studies chemistry and neuroscience, and she always brings like the STEM side of things to it, and then connects it. She's such an incredible thinker. Like, I'm truly envious of her mind because of this. Like, she will, specifically like philosophy of mind stuff. She's so there. She's so ready. But I mean, we get a bunch of different ideas and thoughts and perspectives, whatnot. Because I mean, we have so many different people coming in. Like, and I really love the people, like the poli-sci people that come in and like connect it to current events or like certain media that they've been watching and whatnot. I did not, I kind of live under a rock, if I'm being completely honest. Like, I hate media, I hate social media. I don't partake in any of that. But I really appreciate it when people who do come and like bring the like things that are happening, because it keeps me educated, 'cause I don't know what any of this stuff is, but they're still they'll come and they'll talk and spread their knowledge of whatever they might have. That's so awesome. It's like, that's what school is about, right? That's why we're here, is to bring this diversity of thought into a single like not avenue, excuse me, but into like this vessel of university and thought processes, and it is so warming.
Yesterday, our interviewee, Jeremiah Meyer, he said something very similar. That one of the hardest parts about graduating is losing that community, that sense of academic togetherness that I don't think you can really get anywhere outside of the four-year university. I don't think you can get it online, at least in my opinion.
Oh, online? No, absolutely not. Maybe through other vessels, I don't know, but not online.
With that said, you are graduating soon. You're going to
Mhm.
be walking across to grab your diploma very shortly. What does life look like for you after your diploma, after you graduate, after you finish those last few classes you have?
Well, immediately after, we have the summer, and of course, I will be celebrating accordingly that I've graduated. Going on a big road trip with my friends
heck
around the
yeah.
country after. Super excited about that. Going all the way to the West Coast. And then I'm also going back to Europe for a little while, visit my family, stays out there, which is always a great time. And then after that, I have a few prospects. I haven't exactly decided what I want to do. This has been causing a lot of anguish in my life recently because I should probably figure it out. But what is currently leading right now is I think I will become EMT certified and go do what it is that they do, because I would really love to give back from everything that I've taken from society. But if not that, then I might go teach in France. I've applied to be a teacher of English there, which I will hear from in 2 weeks, I think.
You know French?
I do. I speak French.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
I graduated high school in Switzerland. So I have had my international experience, which it's a great privilege to have done so.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. I think that's all we have time for today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nicco Avallone. My name is Alexandria Severa. Thank you all so much for watching.